Papers by Martha Collins. Because my father said yes, but not in our lifetimes. Because my mother said I know my daughter would never want to marry ... But mostly because they rarely spoke of or noticed or even whispered about and did not, of course ... Because magazines rarely, TV rarely, textbooks rarely, or not at all except for figures like George Washington Carver who'd lived in our state. Because among the crayons there was one called Flesh. Because paintings rarely or never until, because books from the library never until, because college literature, not at all the American Lit Anthology, had only Gwendolyn Brooks, who was not assigned. Because a few years after Brown vs. Board of Education, I wrote a paper that took the position yes, but not yet. Although my father, although my mother, although we rarely, although we whispered, although the silence, although the absence, although even now some TV books, not to mention, radio websites, new militias, hate groups raging against our socialists, communists, fascists, although but still. Our textbooks now are museums, mostly, our college literature courses, even our crayons, not to mention our young president who could scarcely have been imagined when I. And although I've gone back and filled in some blanks, I'm still learning this unlearning, untying the knot of yes, but, rewriting this yes. In White Papers by Martha Collins, racism and society's acceptance of racial discrimination is demonstrated through the poet's stylistic choices. The repetition of because in the first 7 stanzas creates a tone of acceptance that is reflected in society. Some exasperation colors the tone as well, caused by the incomplete sentences and the lack of information given in the resources referenced, like magazines, textbooks, and television. The capitalization of the F in flesh in the 4th stanza draws attention to the word. The connotations behind flesh-colored crayons create a connection to race and form a subtle link to the main subject of the poem, racism. The repetition of although, instead of because, starting in the 7th stanza, causes a tone shift from acceptance to questioning contemplative, as the speaker begins to examine the reasons for racism and why society allows discrimination. The reference to Brown vs. Board of Education, a famous Supreme Court case that declared separate but equal unconstitutional, illustrates the progress society has made towards eliminating discrimination against colored people. In the 11th stanza, the poet says, "Our young president," describing Barack Obama, our first mixed-race president. The tone is hopeful and accomplished, symbolizing the triumph of society in coming so far from slavery and segregation. The conclusion of the poem says the speaker is rewriting this. Yes. The triumphant and eager tone indicates that the speaker just wants to move past the discrimination felt by the black community for so long and wants to write a new chapter in the history of society. This poem relates to my life in other ways than discrimination and racism. The poem never has complete thoughts, only sentence fragments, as if something is constantly being avoided and kept from the speaker. Growing up, I often felt ignorant due to a lack of knowledge compared to those around me, as if there was a topic I couldn't quite understand. The incompleteness of the sentences in the poem gave me a sense of frustration that is shared in the speaker's tone. The girl in the poem just wants people and the media to speak openly about the problems in the world, and I can relate to that desire to just have everything in the open and access to all knowledge. I want our society to be able to move past all the discrimination and hatred towards people who are different from each other that has sought to destroy life as we know it. I feel that this poem accurately captures this view of the world, and that is why it is my favorite poem.